I could kidnap you right now, slip you a scopolamine, knock you out, tie you up, put you on a plane, land you in Cape Town, and throw you out of the back of a van, and you would take a hood off your face, and you would think you were somewhere in San Francisco.
Wow.
That's how westernized it is in Cape Town.
Hey, Jamie Woods, we here to travel and motivate. No curry, we just trying to keep our minds in a golden state. We answer to nobody but the Lord, we control our fate. Too many things to see just to sit in a hole and bake. We growing, ayy.
About countries. I have a list here of countries. So you said earlier you've been to a little bit of the north, right? With Morocco, and then you've been to the east, the south. So I have a list of these countries over here. I'm going to go over every single one of them, and you could just tell me what you think about them in one word, or maybe you can come up with an explanation, whatever the case is for them. But speaking of that country, Kenya, what do you think about Kenya?
Diverse. And that encompasses the languages, the ethnicities. You got Somali Kenyans, you've got Swahili Kenyans, you've got all kinds of different Kenyans. Like I said, the weather, everything is diverse in Kenya, much more than people would expect. And it's not just Nairobi; it's the entire country.
Gotcha. So the next one we have is Tanzania.
Patriarchal. That's the word I would use for Tanzania, and I say that as a good thing, not as a bad thing. It's not a negative. In the West, they try to act like being patriarchal is a bad thing. Well, what's the opposite? That's matriarchal, right? And I don't think a lot of us are wanting to live in a matriarchy, right? So yes, things are very traditional in Tanzania as far as the respect, the gender roles. In some parts of Tanzania, you will see women who just have like the eyes, like you're in Saudi Arabia. Not everywhere, of course, but especially in Zanzibar, you will really see the strong Arab culture there. In the actual mainland, like Dar es Salaam and stuff, it's a lot more liberal than that, unless you're in specific communities, right? But overall, I would say Tanzania is just a patriarchal country, so that's the word I would use to sum that one up.
How about Uganda?
Real. Yeah. Uganda is real. You will not get any fakery there. People are what they present themselves to be. It's pretty transparent. I didn't have any situations where people tried to befriend me and they were just opportunistic or anything like that. If they like you, they like you. If they don't, they don't. What you see is what you get across the board. And what you're going to see 9 times out of 10 is going to be warm people, happy people, people of faith, people with values and traditions.
Next one I got is Rwanda.
Rwanda. Complex. That's a good word for Rwanda. It's complex because on one hand, they have a very strong leadership and a very strong direction for the country, but it's complicated as far as the people are just coming out of such a tragedy that it's going to take time for them to adapt to things. Like the world is moving so fast there that I think the people haven't had time to update. Like their software is still in the past. Like they got this vision, they've got the will to get there, but it's like they haven't quite come together and met that next modern level. But they're getting there. So I think it's complex what's going on right now. There's a lot of contradictions there in the culture and the people, but it's one to watch for sure.
Ozzy has a question. I think he's asking me a question. He said, Jamie, have you been to Africa or have interest in going there? No, I haven't been to Africa. That's why I brought Jay over here, man, because I wanted to educate myself, inform myself on this on this beautiful continent, because I do plan on going there sometime in the future, for real, for real. And I'm thinking the first country I'm gonna hit up, since it's in North, it's right next to Spain. Actually, I want to go to Morocco. I think that might be one of the first places I might go to, and then go down from there. So yeah, definitely, man. We'll see what happens. Because I usually plan my trips a year in advance, actually. So next year I have my plans, but I think Africa could be 2026. So we shall see. But Africa's definitely on that list. And then Ozzy says, I hear Rwanda is the cleanest country in Africa and one of the safest.
True story. Not much else I can say about that. Yeah, it is what it claims to be. Yep.
All right. So if I apologize if I mispronounce or butcher any of these names, because we're getting to some of these countries where I'm like, I don't know how to pronounce that. I've never heard of that country before. Burundi?
Burundi. It's all good, man. Yeah, so Burundi is one of the French-speaking countries in Africa. Of course, they have their native languages as well. Kind of to my earlier point where I said, if you know French, you can go really far in Africa. You'd be surprised how far it can go. A word for Burundi would be developing. So Burundi was considered maybe a year or two ago the poorest country in the world. I don't know if now it's number 4 where it ranks, but it's definitely near the bottom of, or the top, however you look at it, the bottom of the top of that list. But it is definitely developing. It borders Rwanda, and everyone and their mama has heard about Rwanda at this point, right? Because of a good PR campaign, etc. But almost no one who hasn't been to the continent has heard of Burundi, and they're neighbors. They're actually the same people. They're divided by a border. So yeah, you know, it's a place that they're a little behind, especially even Rwanda. But I'm hoping that they can get there. But I would say don't go there unless you know French. Yeah, you wouldn't want to go there without French.
What is it about these French-speaking countries that they refuse to learn English or don't know English? Like, it's the same thing in France. Like, France,
Yeah.
now I will say, out of all the countries, French-speaking countries that I've been to, well, I've only been to one, actually. Never mind, guys. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm not going to lie to you guys like that. But I went to France, and in France, they know English, especially in Paris. They know English. But something about just French-speaking people where it's like, nah, you got to speak to me in French. You know what I mean? I was like, bro, you know English.
Yeah.
Why don't we just talk in English? Why do you have to make me speak in my broken French?
What was that was your experience in Paris or somewhere else?
Like, they weren't mean to me or anything. They weren't rude like what they say, where they're rude, which I've seen that. You know, French people could be a little wild. But my experience was, you know, I would go up to them and I'd be respectful. I'll be like, oh, bonjour, bonsoir, whatever, right? Whatever time of the day it was. And I'd be like, parlez-vous? I think it's called parlez-vous English or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they would just be like, you know, I would only speak French, whatever the case is. But then the person behind me who was American, they'll speak to them in English. I'm like, fam, you just told me you don't speak English, but you do. You pick and choose who you want to speak English with. And I feel like most of them. And then sometimes, you know what's crazy though, Jay? It makes no sense to me because you try to see if they speak English so that way you can have a better conversation with them. But then there's other times where you're like, you know what? Let me take it upon myself to practice my French and see where it goes from there, right? So you'll start off the conversation, you know, speaking French to them. You're not even asking them if they speak English, right? Because you're trying to practice French. And then midway through the convo, they'll be like, sir, I speak English. You can talk to me in English. So I was like, all right. So before you guys were making a big deal out of me trying to get you guys to speak English to me, but now you're telling me that's not a problem, that you're telling me to talk to you in English. So what's going on over here? But French-speaking countries are, you know, no disrespect to them, but it's just strange the way they work like that. It's almost like you got to speak French.
Yeah,
and
man.
Speak good French, too.
Yeah, it's funny that little anecdote you've given because I've been there millions of times, not only with French, with different languages like Portuguese. I was in Mozambique. It's funny because Mozambique, it was a former Portuguese colony, but I didn't even realize this till I got there. Like I had seen it on the map many times, but it never clicked in my head. So I go to Mozambique and I was like, all right, this is my first Portuguese speaking country in Africa. I get to use my rusty Portuguese. So my first day, I used whatever their Uber is. I think it's Bolt or something like that. the guy comes or whatever. I think I messaged him in Portuguese. Was like, yeah, I'm here. He shows up. I say something to him. He hears my accent, and then he talks to me in English the whole trip. And I'm like, bruh, like, why you doing me like that? Like, I know my Portuguese ain't that bad.
It
Like, you
almost comes
understood it.
off a bit offensive. It's almost like
Yeah,
in your mind, you're probably like, oh, you're trying to say my Portuguese sucks? Like,
yeah, exactly,
know?
exactly. And it wasn't just him. Like, this was all across the board. I would go to restaurants and stuff. And then it even got to the point where I was like, do y'all even speak Portuguese, y'all? Like, I had to go to Wikipedia. And then it dawned on me. I was like, okay, they speak Portuguese, right? But they're surrounded by like 5 countries on their border, and all of them speak English. So it's like, oh, okay. So like they have to kind of know it as a kid, because they probably watch American shows, growing up or something like that. But Angola is the opposite. In Angola, if you don't speak Portuguese, nah, English is not going to happen. No, they're isolated. They don't border a lot of English speaking countries. I think they border like maybe 1 or 2. So no, and they're the bigger country out of the ones that border them. So no, it's like Brazil. Like Brazil is bordered by all these Spanish speaking countries, but their Spanish ain't good like that. You know what I'm saying? They can understand it, but they're not gonna. Most of them, like 9 times out of 10, they're not gonna speak really good Spanish. Because they don't have to. They're the bigger country in South America.
Yep.
So they're kind of like their own world apart. And Angola's the same way. It's like they're their own thing. But back to French, yeah, something about French culture where it's just like, I don't know if it's because I don't know all the history because I didn't pay attention that much in high school, but I know the English and the French fought many, many wars for centuries, and I don't know if it was about language or what, but something about that meant that like the French colonialists put it in wherever they went around the world, like fuck English, more or less. I didn't want to curse. You know what I'm saying?
You could curse, bro. It's all good.
Where they were just like, English, don't ever learn it. Like even when we're not your master, still don't learn English. And I feel like that went to their soul, and like they feel like they lose some of themselves if they speak French. I mean, if they speak English in those countries. So yeah, you're not the only one that noticed that.
Yeah, I was like, what is going on here? It is the only place, at least when I went to Brazil, like nobody like really spoke English, but they would attempt to speak to me in a little bit of English. They had no problem doing that. Same thing with Latin America for the most part. But something about France and these French speaking countries where it's like, it's like you damn if you do, you damn if you don't, right? So if you speak
exactly
French, but it's trash, they're just going to speak to you in English or speak to you in a different language. And then if you don't know French, it's like, how dare you not know French?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to get too much into race, but
yeah,
I feel like, someone of, you're a little bit lighter than me. I've been in Africa, so I've been tanning, man. I got a little bit darker, but, somebody with a little bit of melanin and a little bit of brown in their skin, I feel like if you go to any former colony, they just assume you're one of them and like, you should know it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if I go to DR, I speak Spanish, but if I go to Panama, if I go to DR, I'm thinking of like darker, Spanish speaking countries there, and I didn't speak Spanish, they would be looking at me like, why don't you speak Spanish? But if like, my best friend is, Corey from Minneapolis or whatever, blonde hair, blue eyes, they're not going to expect him to speak anything. You know what I'm saying? And the same thing, like if I go to France or, a French speaking country, they're going to look at me like, mais tu ne parles pas le français? But him, they'd be like, oh, you're British, you're American, come over here. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like there's much more pressure on brown people in any former colony to whatever that established language was. Like, why don't you know it? Like, there's that expectation. Even with us being clearly foreigners, it's just I don't know, like a legacy of colonialism. That's my take on it.
I never thought of it that way, man, but it's 100% accurate. Like literally anywhere I've gone, people expect me for the most part to know that language. The only country I've been to where it's like, all right, I'm definitely not, this from this place was, I think, Turkey. Yeah. Turkey, they knew for a fact, all right, this guy ain't one of us. So it's fine. You don't got to know Turkish, right? But any other country, even France itself, Brazil, funny, well, I wouldn't say funny story, but in Brazil, like I couldn't really count how many times people were shocked. Like they actually like would be walking and they would hear me like talking English and they would turn around like, what the hell, English
yes.
being spoken.
Yes.
What is going on here? Like they'll be shocked that a brown person like myself.
Exactly. They don't expect it to come from your voice. They don't expect it to come. I mean, from your face. They don't expect English
Yeah.
to come from your face. It happened to me just the other day here too. And back to that point. Um, I think, like I said, it's only like former colonial places really that you have that, because like if me and Troy from Minnesota or whatever, if me and him go to Thailand together, then we're on the same playing field
Hmm.
because they know neither one of us are local. They know neither one of us has zero expectation to speak English. I mean, speak whatever the local language is. That is one cool thing about Asia or Russia, because Russia never colonized anything black ever. You know what I'm saying? So as soon as they see me, they're like, okay, you don't speak the local language. And the same thing anywhere I go in Asia, they look at me like, okay, he speaks English. I don't know anything about him, but he speaks English. So I don't know if you're like an Asian American, if you get what we experience when they go to Asia, like if they go to the Philippines and they're a little, I don't know, a brown, a Vietnamese dude with a tan, if they just expect them like, hey, you're Asian, you're supposed to know it. Or when they go to Taiwan or whatever, hey, why don't you speak Taiwanese? I don't know. But yeah, for sure, for people that look similar to us, yeah, they really think we're going to know whatever the freaking local language is anywhere that, had brown people a long time ago.
And the thing is, man, because I know certain people, like in the Dominican Republic specifically, if you're a Dominican person or if your parents were Dominican and you don't speak Spanish, that is like one of the worst things you can ever do. Like they're gonna
Yeah.
treat you like an outsider, like a black sheep, if you happen not to speak the language. But that being said, ladies and gentlemen, honestly, I feel like most of the live stream has been like a promotion for learning a new language. You
Yeah.
know, you
And we
guys
didn't
ever
plan it that way
interested?
too. It just happened. It just happened like that.
But if you're gonna be traveling, guys, I mean, you got to pick up another language at least. But what Jay and I are trying to say is that, like, if you do pick up a new language, make sure it's a language that's widely spoken and not something that's specific to a country, unless you're planning on moving there. You know.
Yeah.
But let's go over some other countries over here. Ethiopia.
Ancient. That's the word for that. Ancient, man. It is. I mean, other than maybe Egypt, there's probably no other place where you can just feel, I'd say even more than Egypt, where you just feel the history and how old that this culture is and that it survived this long, kind of almost unaffected by what was going on in the rest of the world, because Ethiopia was never colonized. They're one of the few African countries that when that developed their own script. They don't use the alphabet we use, the A, B, C, D, E, F, G. They have their own letters, just like Russians have their own letters. Chinese people have their own letters. Ethiopians have their own script, just like Arabic is its own script. So things like that just really, really show you how strong the culture was preserved and how ancient and old things are there.
I got Somalia over here.
Somalia, I haven't been there, man. Somalia, you got to be hardcore to go to Somalia. If you are not Somalian, I think even some Somalis would not go back. Like ones raised in the West. I don't know if they're still at war right now, but nah, I haven't been there, man. That's a little bit, one day I'll probably go to Somalia.
All right, so I got some southern African countries over here. We're gonna go
Okay.
over a couple of them, for time's sake. But South Africa.
Western. That's the best word for South Africa. So I could kidnap you right now, slip you, what do they call that? What do they call it? Burundanga, the scopolamine. Yeah, they call it Burundanga
Oh,
scopolamine.
that's what they
I
call it
could
over
give
here.
you a scope. What's that?
So they have their own version of scopolamine over there.
No. That wasn't what I was saying. I was just thinking of, because there's a slang for scopolamine. I think they call it Burundanga, if I'm
Okay.
not mistaken. I speak too many words in my vocabulary. I think that's another word for it. But anyway, I could give you scopolamine right now, knock you out, tie you up, put you on a plane, land you in Cape Town, and throw you out of the back of a van, and you would take a hood off your face, and you would think you were somewhere in San Francisco.
Wow.
That's how westernized it is in Cape Town.
Wow.
There are definitely neighborhoods that are 95% white in Cape Town, where you're like, this is Africa? Like how? Houseway. Those type of experiences. That's why I say it's westernized. Of course, there's poverty, there's extreme poverty in South Africa, there's extreme inequality in South Africa, but I'd say overall the culture is extremely westernized, for good and for bad, because there's people who live in the States and they're like, I like everything about the States except one thing, then they would love Cape Town. But, or, but there's people who are just like, I don't like the States whatsoever. Those people probably wouldn't like, Cape Town. Now Johannesburg feels a little more African. That's the biggest city is, Johannesburg. That's where, the major international airport is. You've got a lot of Africans from other countries who live there, work there, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that's how I would sum up, South Africa. It's just very westernized.
Ozzy says, Cape Town looks like America based on the videos I've seen.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. He follows my channel, so he's seen a lot of the videos I've done. If you guys haven't seen it, I have a whole playlist of South African content, and that's from Cape Town, Joburg, and Pretoria, and also Durban. So I covered 4 different cities in South Africa. When I go to big countries, I like to not just go to the capital city or the most popular city. I like to see at least 2 cities in most countries that I visit. Of course, some countries are too small or I'm just limited on time. But in general, I like to have 2 different perspectives before I can give a score or, have an assessment of a country. I don't feel like it's really fair for most countries to only go to one city and then just kind of act like you're the expert now when it's like, not really,
Yeah, man. It just, I 100% agree with you, man, because I feel most of the countries I've been to at least 2 cities. I think the only country that I haven't been to 2 cities in was probably France. The rest of them, though, I've been to at least 2 cities in them. But yeah, I feel like if you're a content creator or if you're giving an opinion about a country, I feel like it'd be more credible if you've been at least to other cities. Because that's the thing is that it's like that in every country where, for example, Brazil, Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro feel like 2 different worlds. You know what I mean? But if you've only been to one or the other, you're going to assume that the rest of the country is like that when in reality is not. So when you're talking about, Brazil, there's a lot of nice beaches and this, that, and all right, there's some truth to it. There is a lot of beaches in Brazil. It's a beach's paradise, right? But not the rest of the countries like that. Like Sao Paulo, completely different. You're talking about Salvador Bahia, completely different. Florianopolis, south of Brazil, completely different. Like every single region of any country is going to be different from the next. So I'm glad you got that rule, man, because I feel like every traveler should have that rule. You should at least go to 2 different cities.
That's very true. Very, very true. I can give you, like you said, some dudes, they'll go to one city and they didn't like the country. You could look at Cartagena, right? If somebody just goes to Cartagena and they say, too many tourists, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Cartagena is nothing like Bogota. They're completely different worlds, right? And Bogota is nothing like Cali. Completely different worlds, completely different culture, environment, people, music, the way people, relate to each other. And we could go down the board. I could do that with so many countries, but yeah, as a general rule, another reason, this is the last thing I'll say about this. Another reason too that I like to go to more than just the most popular city is because you're never really going to find the culture of like the nation so strongly. There are a few exceptions in whatever the most popular city is. I'm trying to think of a perfect example of this. So, I'm trying to think. Man. So, perfect example, right? Paris in France. So if you go to Paris or even Amsterdam is another great example. So Paris is, if I'm not mistaken, majority non-French.
Yep, that's true.
So if you go to Paris and you say, I know what France is about, and you might be staying in a neighborhood where the majority of the people speak French as a second language. You might be in an Arabic district of Paris, and you think that's what French culture is to some extent. And the same thing in Amsterdam. Amsterdam is majority non-Dutch. So if you just go to Amsterdam, that is a tourist experience. That is a international experience. Same with New York City. It's an international experience. which there's nothing wrong with that. But you're not going to get the heart and soul of
Mm-hmm.
America in Manhattan. You're just not. And the same applies to those countries I named. Like when I went to the Netherlands, I made it a point that I was not just going to go to Amsterdam. I also went to a city called Tilburg and a city called Nijmegen. I know I'm pronouncing it horribly, but when I meet Dutch people around the world and they say, "Oh, you've been in my country," and they say Amsterdam, I said, "Yeah, Amsterdam," and I say Nijmegen, they go like, "Oh shit, he really knows us. Like this guy knows the real deal." Like they're like, "How did you go there?" And like, "What did you think of it?" Like it just really changed the conversation versus, oh, another tourist who, just checked the box and kept
The typical
it
stuff.
pushing. Yeah, and the same with France. Like France, the very first time I only went to Paris because I had a girl there. I'll make this quick. Try to get back to the Africa stuff. But the first
All good,
time I
bro.
got to France, I just went with this girl and she invited me. She's like, "You can stay in my place. I live in the best neighborhood in Paris, etc." So I couldn't turn that down, right? So it was just a couple of days. But then the second time I came back, I said, I want to make sure I don't go to Paris. I want to see something different. So I went to the south. I went to Marseille. I went
Wow.
to Toulouse. I went to Nice just for like the day. I went to what is the other city? But anyway, I got to see a lot of the south. And like most countries, you have a north-south rivalry, an east-west rivalry. So people in the south, they don't even really mess with Parisians like that. Just like in America, a lot of people you get out to Texas or California, they may not like New Yorkers.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
they definitely don't like us over here.
Yeah, so it really shows you that like if you just go to the most popular city, you're only getting a surface level of the actual culture of the country. You're getting a very international tourist version of it.
Jay, like, it's crazy, man. Because see, this is why I like having you on as a guest, man. Because when I have you on, there's certain conversations that I've never even talked to with anyone else. Like what we're saying about this, about going to more than one city. It sounds basic, but it's actually very complex because it can really make or break your experience in a country or your opinion about a country. You know what I mean? Because back to the whole 1-2 city stuff, right? So there's 2 points I want to make. So the first one is, I think a good example of what you're talking about is also Spain. So Spain, for example, you go to Madrid and you're in Madrid for a week or however long, and you're going to think, okay, I've been to Spain. I'm good. I don't really like it because most people don't really like Madrid like that. And my opinion about Madrid is Madrid should never be your introduction to Spain. It should be one of the middle cities. Like, you know what I
Exactly.
mean? It should never be
Exactly.
the first city you go to because it's not a proper representation of Spain. What I do think is a proper representation of Spain, in my personal opinion, I could be wrong, is Seville. I think Seville is the true Spain. I view that as true Spain, like south of Spain. I heard good things about Valencia, like places like that. So that's the thing is try out. Well, my opinion is go to Barcelona first. I feel like that should be your introduction. Either that or that
Sure.
should be the ending.
Yeah, I
But
agree with that. And that's actually how I first experienced Spain the first time. I started. It was a weird route, but my first city in Spain was actually Mallorca. Was in the islands
wow,
in the what do you call it? Balearic Islands or whatever
wow,
in the Mediterranean, and then I went to from there I went to Barcelona. So Barcelona was my first like proper mainland city, but I started in the island, which is completely different how most people from the States will do it. Um, but yeah, absolutely. Everything that you said, I co-sign.
yeah. So my advice for you, I know this is an Africa live stream, but my advice is start off in Barcelona and then make your way central to Madrid and then make your way south to Seville and do that. I think that would be the route to do. But speaking of the routes, so we went over a couple countries. Actually, there's actually 2 more countries I want to go over. They're not necessarily in southern or eastern Africa, but they're 2 very big countries, popular countries within Africa. So the first one is Morocco. What's your opinion on Morocco, if you were to describe it?
Mixed. Morocco is very mixed, and I say that as far as the cultures and the people. So in Morocco, you have Moroccans. You've probably been told this before, right? You have a lot of Moroccans who look like you. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've been told that before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've been told.
you would absolutely blend in there, like not even a problem. Now, me, if I cut my dreads, I mean, they could think I was maybe from like southern Morocco, or I was like half Moroccan or something like that. Um, but yeah, a lot of people don't think that there are Moroccans as dark as you, or there are Moroccans with like green eyes and stuff. Like there's quite a variety of that Arabic, half European, half African. If you know the history there, it was kind of a crossroads for many different cultures or whatever. Morocco has good food. Morocco, the prices are really, really good. Really good. I hear Turkey's the same way. I haven't been to Turkey yet, but I feel like Morocco and Turkey have a lot in common because they are like they're like the buffer state. Like I'm leaving Europe, but I'm still kind of connected to Europe in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think Morocco, there's a lot of culture there, a lot of history there. If you're going there with women being a primary thing, I mean, I wouldn't blame you. There are some gorgeous Moroccan women. It's going to be a little more challenging than some other countries. And that's not because they don't like you, because trust me, they do like foreign guys. It's more that the culture's a little conservative. Now, it's not Saudi Arabia. Nobody's going to get stoned or anything like that. But you do have to be discreet. I can say that much about Morocco versus, more westernized countries where everyone can kind of do what they want in the open there. You have to be more discreet, but there are definitely some opportunities there. And I want to go back. I've been to 2 cities, but the time that I spent there was way too short. So I feel like I need to give it another go and experience like a 3rd city in Morocco before I could really give it a rating.
The next country I want to talk about is Egypt. What do you think about Egypt?
Egypt is amazing. Amazing country.
Wow.
I mean, did I meet him before or after? I'm trying to think. I met this really cool Egyptian guy. I think I met him. No, I met him before I went. So I don't know. Maybe that gave me like a more positive impression of Egyptians overall. But when I was living in Europe, I met this really cool Egyptian guy. He looked like he was a light-skinned Black American. Honestly, like something like Drake. He looked something like that. Very positive guy. And he was just telling me all the good things about Egyptian culture, all the things I need to see, et cetera, et cetera. So I already had it in my head that like Egypt is going to be very, warm. They're going to receive me well. I'm not going to be treated badly. And I was right, like 99%. You know what I'm saying? The history there is amazing. It has to be seen to be experienced. It's one thing to read about it, but to actually be there and to put your hand and stand next to something that is older than anything that's standing on planet Earth, not just in Africa, on planet Earth, older than the Roman stuff you can see, older than the Greek stuff that you can see. Like this stuff is even better preserved than that, because if you go to Greece, most of their temples and colosseums and stuff, they're like decaying. They're like falling down. You can see like a pillar here,
Mm-hmm.
one pillar standing, and like 15 pillars are on the ground, 9 times out of 10. But in Egypt, like everything is it's still there. Like they built it 3 weeks ago or something like that. So to me, that's incredible. It's going to give you a lot of pride in your heritage. If you have any roots to Africa and the continent, it's undeniable. Made the pyramids. You can see it for yourself. It's just incredible. I could talk about Egypt for days. I want to go back. I didn't get to see the southern part because they say in Nubia, there are people who are even darker, the original people, because currently most of the people in Egypt, they have Arab roots. They have an Arab heritage, right? And DNA backs this up that they weren't the original people there. But if you go south, you've got you have the Nubian people who they look more like me and you, and they're not the ones that the media will show you as much. Now, there's some great YouTubers who've done content with those folks who've gone down there, and I feel like I need to be another one who goes down there and really experiences it for myself.
I was just about to say that, Jay.
Oh yeah, man.
I was just about to say that.
But I will say about Cairo, because I was only in Cairo and Giza, and if I'm not mistaken, Cairo is the 3rd biggest city in Africa. So we're talking like 12 million people. It's a mega city. It's quite walkable in certain districts. You've got a subway, which a lot of African countries don't have an underground subway. I'm pretty sure there's only like 3. but this is like the first one that has a subway underground. So you can use that to get around when there's traffic. Uber is very cheap. Everyone really understands English from what I've experienced. What else can I say? Very good, international options. There's people there from all over the world. It's another place where French will be helpful. They do know English, but French, I think they were colonized by the French for a little while as well. So there's some remnants of that. But yeah, just overall, man, there's so much to see in Egypt. I think that's a good place to start for some people. Morocco is also a good place to start. I actually didn't mention this, but I took my mother with me to Morocco the second time I went. So the first time it was just short. I went by myself. I was in Casablanca. Casablanca? Yeah, it was in Casablanca. I went by myself. But I took my mom to Tangier. If you're in Spain, it's like a 45-minute flight. You can go with Ryanair. You can go with a lot of different airlines for like $20, $30. It's really cheap. So we took like a weekend and we went to Morocco just to hang out and see it. So yeah, Morocco's a safe country. You may have a little bit of like, come buy my stuff, come buy my stuff. This can be annoying at times, but that's the biggest.
Like that too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the Arab culture, man. That's the biggest issue you're going to have. Yeah, as far as I know, it's not like a big pickpocket culture. Definitely not like a violent, like beat up the tourist type of a culture. So yeah, you're not going to get scopolamine out there. You'll be all right.